I want to talk about the impact of finding my biological father, because I actually didn't think that not knowing your dad was significant until I did know my dad. Like, I didn't know what was missing until I found it. And I think that's important. And it's weird to me because it's so massive, it's so big, it makes everything else that I've ever recorded feel weirdly insignificant, like these tiny little issues. And I guess that's the reason why I've avoided talking directly about it. It's also quite emotional. It's massive. It's like every single aspect of who I am as a person shifted. Like my whole being shifted. Like I felt myself, my identity and who I thought I was, and all of like the most fundamental parts of myself, like it totally changed as soon as I met my biological father. And you can see where you come from. Like I underestimated that, and I underestimated it, and I also imagined it differently. Like I didn't really imagine it at all. I forgot, like, or I was unable to, I just never gave it a thought, to be honest. But like, I didn't just meet my dad, like I met like this whole extended family. Like 50% of my family tree opened up. So like in my head, I'd never really thought much further than, okay, there's a father missing, you know, like there's a one person that I don't know. There's like this small insignificant part of my identity. I'd never allowed myself to contemplate it deeply enough to think like, oh, there's like siblings missing, aunties, uncles, grandparents missing, like there's culture missing, like there's like stories missing, there's so much stuff that's like encoded into my DNA that like hasn't been activated, or maybe it has been, but like I don't know much about it. Like I don't understand what's taking place within me. Like I don't know why, like I have a natural interest in motorsports and cars, and I always have been like an adrenaline junkie, and I've wanted to put the pedal to the metal and go as fast as I can. Like turns out that's a part of my family. Like my sister has it too, and even like the people, like my stepmother has it. Like my father attracts that kind of like the same kind of people. Like he's always been around people that like to live life to the fullest kind of thing, and it goes all the way up my family tree. I also would have known like where my earlier like teenage years and early 20s love of alcohol and drugs came from. Like it's a little bit in the blood as well, to take things a little bit to the extreme, but without like going into like too much depth about the different elements that I've picked up and all of that. Like the point is I just didn't know. Like I didn't know where it all came from, or I didn't know where a lot of it came from, and I underestimated the significance of being connected to the source of like where you biologically come from, and like being able to see like your uncles and aunties and your grandparents and stuff, and see yourself in all these people. Like it's all these new mirrors, like these new parts of yourself that you can kind of see. Like I've got a really philosophical kind of uncle that I've met once, and I could just see like whatever that is in the family, like I also have that piece, and like I have this piece over here, and it's just like this really strange sense of belonging is the word. Like these are my people. Like, and even just how goofy my sister and my dad can be with me. Like we did a weird little photo shoot because we were going to do the variety bash, and we were going to call our team the Beach Bums, and we had like a pool noodle, and we're wearing goggles, and we're in the middle of like dry bush country. Like, so it was just absurd, but it was so fun and funny, and like just natural, and it just felt so good. Like I've probably, because that balance was never there, and I never knew all these different parts of myself, and I didn't have people around me that matched what was missing, I also felt quite alienated from the family that I did know. There was also a lot of dysfunction and issues and stuff going on, and you know, but I feel like because of the balance wasn't there, because I didn't know both sides, like I felt more alienated from the side that I did know, because it didn't make sense to me, because I didn't have the complete picture. So like, I've made a lot of peace with mum since I've met dad. Like, it just makes more sense. The amount of sense that life makes now, and like how much sense I make to myself, is just like, I can't even articulate how big it is, like how important it is. So if you're watching this and you've clicked on it because you're looking for your dad, like, I personally didn't put much effort into it, to be totally honest with you. Like, I didn't think it was important. I also had a whole bunch of like bullshit stories in my head. Like, I thought the dude didn't want me, and like a lot of assumptions. Like, so I was like, I'm not going to bother because he didn't bother, like stuff like that. Like, there was heaps of reasons why I didn't put a lot of effort into finding him. And like, so much of it turned out to be total nonsense and untrue. And like, he was so stoked when I showed up, and he got really emotional, and it was beautiful. And like, it was like this reunion that we never, like, we were never united in the first place. It was a union, you know, like, and it was a really important one. And we both like sort of felt that from the beginning, even though when I first met the dude, we didn't know if it was legit or not. Like, we didn't know for sure that this man was my father, but like, everybody else was like, it's obvious, we can see it. We went to the doctor to do the paternity test, and he thought it was a prank. He's like, are you serious? Like, you need a paternity test for this? Like, you're a spitting image of one another. So all of that was beautiful too. It's just been a wild ride. And as like I said earlier, like, my whole identity and like everything that I thought about myself kind of shifted with meeting him, because it's like everything I believed about my father, all the stories that I made up in my head, just kind of fell apart and were replaced by the reality. And like, I didn't realize how much of myself was a part of that, what I imagined my father to be. So like, as the assumptions and all of the negative beliefs that I'd built up over the years fell apart of him, they also fell apart in myself. And I kind of started to see myself as a better person in this really weird way. Like, I've expressed it a little bit in previous recordings, but it's just like, it's really hard to articulate. I could not have possibly comprehended what was going to take place. And now the ripple effects of finding that completion, like, there's nothing missing anymore. It really feels like there's nothing missing anymore. There is a sense of completion, there's a sense of contentment. Like, my whole life has just kind of all of a sudden gelled, and it just feels like I'm not trying to fill any particular void anymore. And I tried to fill that void in so many different unhealthy ways over the years, like drugs and alcohol, romance, love stories, or just sex and lust and infatuation, even like different ways that I would try to sort of fill that void. Like, just what am I not feeling that I'm supposed to be feeling? And then, you know, like, family was what was missing. And you know, I don't know if everybody has like a reason why all these unhealthy behaviors and stuff come up, and like what that void is that you're trying to fill. But for me, like, there was a lot of things that sort of calmed me down and like made me feel a little bit more complete, like, over the years. And I healed and I grew and I evolved and I changed and I felt better and better. And then I think, like, I actually needed to go through all that healing and plug those little holes to reach a point where I was ready to acknowledge the void, like acknowledge like how deeply I felt disconnected from myself, and like how important it was to find my dad. And it was actually like friends and people around me who kept pointing it out to me, like, this keeps coming up. You say that it's not important to you, you say it doesn't matter, but I can tell that it's significant. I can tell that this is important. One of my childhood friends said, like, when I did find my dad, he's like, I was so disappointed in you when we talked about it, and you said that you were going to do nothing about it. You weren't going to look for him, and you didn't care, because I knew that you did, and I knew that this was something that needed to happen. And then he was so happy when I finally acknowledged how important it was, and I went and did it. But yeah, like I said, I guess the void was so scary and painful and significant earlier that if I had have tried to address it and acknowledge it and like go find my dad from that wounded place, that fucked up place where I was still like swirling around with all my addictions and issues and stuff, then it wouldn't be the same picture. Like I needed to heal first to arrive at this moment that has been so beautiful. So yeah, anybody who's thinking about reconnecting with family, I've heard so many people say like, I'm glad that it's so beautiful for you, because it's not always that way. And actually I was quite surprised, a lot of the reactions when I first started telling people like I found my dad were like, oh no, like I hope it's okay, like, because apparently it's just not common for it to go so smoothly and so lovingly, and for people to be so open and welcoming. And you know, it wasn't disruptive at all. I feel like we all grew more whole from it. Oh. I might share some more about this at another time. If you get anything out of these diaries, these little recordings, click the like button for me, leave your comments down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and check out my website if you like, kailives.com.